Okay, now you can call it to order.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which is standing one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, I think it's great. I don't know why Jamie isn't here.
Here. Here. Here. Harv Ed.
Here.
Holmes Martin.
Yep.
Kevin Johnson
Yes.
and Amanda Lapp.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi.
Approval of agenda for January 25.
We just need to have two additions, 4.5 on the consent agenda. We need to add recommendation, move to approve FFA overnight trip for the Oregon FFA State Convention. And then 4.6, recommendation, move to approve Tanner Owen, high school assistant wrestling coach.
Hi. Patients, equipment is healthy school. No, public.
Yes, they'll be first.
Each motion is board minutes from December 16, 2024. This recommendation. Accept the resignation of Aubrey Rich, assistant softball coach. Section 4.2. 4.3 is the recommendation to move forward with cooperative agreement with Imler for girls 2025 season. And 4.4 is the recommendation to go forward with cooperative agreement with Imler for boys baseball 2025 season. And the addition of the 4.5 overnight request for FFA state convention. And 4.6 is the move to hire Tanner Owen for assistant wrestling.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second. All in favor?
I
Fraser.
All right, 5.0 action discussion. Second reading of school district policies. See the attached policies. You want me to read them all? Okay,
Please no.
so we. Yes, we will. Okay,
Motion to approve action items 5.1 A through F.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
5.2, Elgin Maker, proposal of East Elgin Finance and School Resource Officer for Elgin Schools. I make a motion not to accept hiring a resource officer for the 2025-2026 season. Schools.
I'm sorry, who's the second by?
All in favor? Aye. Abstain?
Aye.
You're not allowed to vote. Oh, you're not allowed.
Yeah. She has to abstain due to conflict.
I just want to ask you guys.
She did. Yes. 5.3, approve work to move forward with the exemption to the competitive bidding process on the seismic grant project, the Stella Mayfield Elementary Auditorium.
I move to approve, to move forward with the bidding.
I'll second the bidding.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain? Wait, no, information, director questions. So I have 6 good. Advocate reports, Todd Diamonds, will see.
Sorry, let me get to that point, just in case any, does anybody have any questions on Mr. Diamond's report?
No.
Yeah.
Here, do you want this?
Actually.
Okay.
Yeah, to start out with, reflecting on high school wrestling, they've definitely, for the 9, 10 boys, 4 girls, so about 14, 15, when they're all healthy, had a pretty nasty, run through of some infantile going on, which pulled a lot of kids back from being able to compete. Seems like all that's gotten remedied, for the most part now. So, but just kind of from the outside looking in and talking with kids, it's kind of seems to me as, for the girls, a standout has been Bailey Hasdell. She's been working really good, and I think that her maturity and everything, she's just came so far, and it's really transferring over into her abilities as a wrestler. And then for the boys, Landon Fincher, he's always locked in and has been a great leader for everybody, even helping out with the junior high kids a lot. And so it's always a blessing to see our high school kids being willing to put some time in with the young kids too. So, they were supposed to go to the classic down in Redmond last week, but since they had so many kids that were out with their stuff, they would be able to go compete as a dual team. So they were able to, sounds like, get reimbursed, get funds back for everything. And they had a team that was on standby that was able to just slip into their spot. So they took a few kids to Lewiston, and the girls went to Walla Walla, and sounds like they had some pretty decent success. So.
Bailey, Amber, third is it?
That's awesome.
About that.
Glad you're here to weigh in on that, because they didn't tell me that.
Yeah.
No worries. High school basketball has been going really well. The girls currently, well, they're 12-1 now, and they're still ranked number 13 in the state. The boys, we've been we have won more games in a season since COVID, so definitely looking up there. Ranked 35, 36 in the state. Had a really good preseason, and now things are kind of going up and down a little bit more than we'd like to see. But the number of girls participants has dropped. It initially was 16. There's down to 12, and it's been really difficult to make JV games happen. But I had talked with our coach and told her that if it got to the point where I had to cancel one more JV, 2-quarter JV girls game, that I'm scrapping the whole season. And so that has came to that point today. So moving forward from here on out, there will not be 2 quarters of JV girls basketball, unfortunately, but I've got to focus on the varsity side and continuing to build that. So hopefully moving into next year, that JV program will keep getting built. The boys, well, we were sticking at 18 strong, but had an injury for one of our varsity players, and now he's going to be out for the season.
So that definitely took a little bit of a toll on our guys' mentality, but having some good conversation with them, and they seem to all be staying up as a team, and they really want to go to districts. So they have an opportunity to do that, I feel like, this year. But you just need to get a lot more consistent. And I think they know what needs to be done. Junior high wrestling started on the 6th, right when we got back from break. As far as I know, there's 11 boys and 3 girls from the initial part, but I think that there was one other girl from the grade school that was added on. So on a daily basis, that might fluctuate a little bit, but they were able to go to LeGrand last week. And I feel like from what I heard, there was some pretty good success.
They kick butt.
Landon, or not Landon, but Lucas won. Mesa,
So one.
Fincher won. I asked Weston Evans how he did and if he got his booty whipped up on, and he said, yeah, by Cooper, which is my nephew. Sorry, bud. But yeah, with their new coach, everybody seems to really like Zach. I've been enjoying, I mean, he's easy to communicate with and straightforward, and he's helping out everywhere. He's just jumped in and helping out high school, helping out, coaching in junior high, helping the girls, not afraid to get in there wherever it's needed, and which is a huge blessing for sure. The only other things that I had, and I might be missing something, but was just the co-ops, looking for the approval for softball and baseball. And then just kind of wanted to make sure we still had it on the radar for our junior high track coaching position and assistant softball positions for their resignations and stuff.
It's the head coach for softball.
Yes, yep. And I've asked her if she has anybody. She said, well, I might or not, but so hopefully. But
She has a good rapport with them.
yeah, and it sounds like Embler has at least 5 boys that want to play baseball, and I foresee them having more coming in the future. And I guess the biggest thing is try to continue to keep building it and hope that we can sustain. And I think the best way to sustain is to be co-op with Embler and to even be competitive, because the majority of all the other schools are all co-op anyways. So for baseball, we had one interview last week. We'll see. Yeah. Sure. I think that there was a conversation with email between Carla and Dirk and I, because Dirk has access to all that stuff to be able to. So hoping that he'll.
He's usually very, very quick to get stuff posted.
Like,
yeah.
We talk,
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, as far as trying to continue to keep it circulating, like it's posted, but
But then it gets buried.
then it gets carried. Yeah, no, then it stays open forever. And so, but we typically only have one applicant for baseball and softball. Well, you can start with pitchers and catchers in February. Yeah. So, I mean, I would have no problems helping get the pitchers and catchers and stuff going if that's the case. But usually it starts like right before spring break or spring break. But just with the way that our program has been, I haven't even been trying to schedule any preseason games because it's been so hard to get the coaching and everybody on track. And so I just like, hey, whatever our league schedule is, maybe try to filter a couple things in there. But other than that, the schedule's already built. Let's try to build off that without putting too much more in people's laps until we can get a good solid program built. So yep.
Thank you. Current enrollment over here at the grade school, pre-K through 6th grade, is about 215. We did have a couple that's good. The month's theme here at the grade school is gratitude. We have our teachers and support staff working with our students through our strong curriculum, influencing that trait. On Monday, first Monday in February, we'll recognize one student out of every class for that student of the month. And we also had preschool reading night last week on the 14th. The theme in the library here was snowmen at night without snow. Impact Teams is going to be back here on Thursday this week for professional development. Our teachers are working with our trainers and each other on providing meaningful feedback. And that includes some lessons with the kids as well, providing feedback with one another. And that's with a formative assessment process and our student writing progressions. Winter concert that we had on December 17th before the break was a big hit, and then followed up over at the high school as well. Being able to view both concerts, it's very clear that our students remain highly engaged within our music education programs. And it's very, very strong for a small school. We were able to actually stream the concert here also to the library. Mrs. Bucker was in here and she had said that it was a pretty good idea to offer that, where we had some kids that might have been struggling through the concert, that they could come in here to a quieter place. The end of the semester was on Thursday, and the end of second quarter too. And that was on Thursday, the 16th. Grades are due for teachers the following Tuesday, which is actually now tomorrow. Grades are complete and ready for distribution. I will put I'll put a phone announcement out when I have confirmation that all of them are done, so that our parents are aware to check backpacks. And if they did not receive one, I'll receive a phone call. Let's see. Selected teachers and support staff worked with our CPI trainers on Friday, our work day last week, for a full day to remain in compliance with procedures related to behavioral regulation and crisis prevention. We have begun and are continuing to work through our winter diagnostic for iReady. We're interested to see the advancements kids have made since the beginning of the school year. There are many incentives to the program that are both class and school-wide for students making progress in that area. Our fourth graders are heading over to Ferguson on the 23rd, just the fourth graders, to check out the Eagle Cap sled dog races. Next round of elections for student council is coming up here at the grade school. We're actually starting to see some of our campaign posters throughout the building, which is pretty cool. And then we'll have on the 13th of February, we're going to be having our family dance night for grades 3rd through 6th. The kids have been working on dance unit within our PE program. Another thing that I wanted to add this in the board report is, as you may have noticed, we've because we do have many little kids, we've modified our bookshelves in here. We took some of those, we took two large, those really bulky ones that are kind of like the one that's split nonfiction over there. We took two of those out and added, I think we have maybe about 8 of those smaller ones. There's a couple more still coming in here, but it creates a nice little area for our younger kids. And Mrs. Bucker runs her library time for all of our kids from that little area right there. So it kind of keeps it almost like a smaller classroom environment within a classroom. So it works pretty well. And that's what I know.
Pre-K.
Pre-K through 6. So there's 13 in our preschool.
Pre-K.
Yeah. And the majority of those kiddos are in kindergarten readiness, so we can include those students as part of our numbers for the upcoming school year. So we're kind of looking at around with that group, as well as the kiddos coming from Head Start, we're looking at a relatively smaller kindergarten size again for next year, maybe around 20, 22 kids. From what we can see, we just never really know until we see the whites of their eyeballs. So.
Financial report, Amanda Lex.
Hi, Lindsay, did you kind of want to go first on the prior year financials?
Still muted. Do you want me to go over the whole audit report or just like the financial portion of it?
The audit report.
Okay, perfect. So all of you should have a copy of the audit report in our letters in front of you. The first thing I'll go over is the letter. One of the letters you got is our governance letter. It's addressed to the board of directors. So in this letter, we go over some accounting practices. We just note that we implemented GASB 100 this year, which is just it presents the financial statements in a different way when major funds change, which we'll get to that in the financial statements. We encountered no significant difficulties during our audit. There's adjusting journal entries that were posted to the district's account. We had no disagreements with management during our audit. And we didn't have any other significant audit findings or issues. Attached to this letter, you'll see the adjusting journal entries that we proposed that were posted to the district's accounts. Two of these we make every year. It's just to post the student body funds into the district's general ledger. And then the other ones are small journal entries, so it's a really good thing. We didn't have to make many adjustments at all. The other letter that you will have is the action plan letter, and this is the letter that goes over our findings, recommendations, and then the district's plan of action to get those corrected. The district signed this letter and sent it into the state. We will go over all of these findings in the back of the audit presentation, though, in the audit report. So getting into the actual report, and if anyone has any questions, you can just jump in, yell at me, and I will stop and answer your questions. So in our actual report, our bound report that you have on page 1, this is our independent auditor's report, and this is where we provide our opinion on whether the financial statements are materially stated in our opinion. And we do say we have a clean opinion. We believe the financial statements are materially stated, so our opinion is unmodified. And then this also goes over our responsibilities and management's responsibilities if you read through the whole report. This year also the district had a single audit because there was federal funds spent in excess of $1 million. So all of those reports are in the back, and we'll go over opinions on those reports as well. On page 4, this is where the financial statements start. Statement of net position, you can see at the bottom that the total net position is $4.8 million. So assets exceed liabilities by $4.8 million at the end of the year. The majority of this is net investment in capital assets, so buildings, equipment, land. And then on page 5 is our statement of activities, which is a high-level review of where revenue and expenses are categorized for the district. And then at the bottom of this page 5, you can see that the net position increased by $232,000 during the year. We did have a prior period adjustment for $61,000, and there's a note disclosure, so we'll go over that for what that was in the note disclosures. And then the fund financial statements start on page 6. So the balance sheet, there's a difference between the fund financial statements and government-wide financial statements, and we reconcile them. So we'll go over that as well. At the end of the year, in total, governmental funds had ending fund balance of $553,000. And then page 7 is the reconciliation between the fund balance and net position. So in the statement of net position, it's where all the capital assets are reported, and then the long-term liabilities. So the bonds payable at the end of the year. And then on page 8, 8 and 9, this is a statement of revenues and expenditures and changes in fund balance. So it's like the profit and loss. It has a little bit more detail of the revenue and expenditures for the year by fund, major fund, and total combined non-major funds. And then on the bottom of page 9, you can see that ending fund balance decreased by $1,068,000 during the year. Most of this is due to capital outlays. So purchases of land, building improvements, construction. On page 10 is the reconciliation between the change in fund balance versus the change in net position. So like I said before, the biggest difference is because there were multiple capital expenditures during the year. And then the bond payment. Page 11, this is where the notes to the financial statements start. So this goes over more detail of the district's accounting policies and the numbers in the financial statements. So if you want any more information on what's in the financial statements, it's a really good thing to go to the notes and look at more detail on that. Note 1 is just the accounting policies of the district. I'm just going to highlight a few of these notes. On page 15, note 2, compliance and accountability. This is where we would disclose any violations that we audited during the year. So you can see that there were some budget violations during the year, which funds they were and which category they were in. There was a violation that the average daily membership was not followed for dropping students after 10 days. So students were actually dropped after 11 days. They're supposed to be dropped on the 10th day. So I think there was just a little bit of confusion with that. Another violation, the average daily membership that was on the district's books did not reconcile to what was reported to ODE during the year. And then we disclose also deficit fund balances of the funds that have any deficit fund balances. Note 3, you can see where the cash is in the district and within banks and with LGIP and investments. And then note 4, the change in capital assets starting on page 18. So this will show you which category there were capital purchases in and if there were any deletions, any assets that were sold or abandoned. So you can see that total capital outlay was $1.6 million during the year. Note 6 on page 19 shows the decrease in the bond payable at the end of the year. So there's just one more payment that needs to be done until that bond is paid out. And then on page 24, note 16, this is where we disclose the prior period adjustment. This was because there was a lot of land that was purchased in 2023, and there was a down payment of $61,000 that was not capitalized. It was expensed. So we actually added it back to the land purchase.
Could you please repeat that last part?
Yeah, on note 16, the prior period adjustment that we had. So there was a land purchase in 2023 and there was a down payment on it that was actually expensed. So what we did with the prior period adjustment is we brought it back in and capitalized it with that lot that was purchased.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Starting on page 25, the general fund actually has 3 funds, so that's our combining general fund. And then 26 is where all the budgetary statements start. So you can see in here which funds had over expenditures, and how close the budget to actual numbers were within revenues and expenditures. So this is a pretty helpful tool to be monitoring monthly to see where you're at within your budget. There are a lot of funds, so there are a lot of budgetary statements. Okay, starting on page 52, I just skipped over all of the budgetary statements. You can go look at those by fund and see where you're at the end of the year of 2024. Starting on page 52, these schedules are reconciled with ODE, so they're required by ODE. Then on page 56, this is our report required by Oregon state regulations. So in this report, we go over the ORSs that we audited and then any violations that we found during our audit. We went over the violations in no disclosure 2. And then starting on page 59, like I was saying in the beginning, this district spent more than $1 million in federal funding during the fiscal year. So that requires a single audit, which is where we audit major federal programs and compliance with those programs. And I believe this is the first year Elgin School District has ever had a single audit. So it was a whole new learning experience for everyone involved. Uh-oh. Okay. But page 59 goes over the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, so you can see which programs, federal programs, the district received and spent. And then on page 61, this is our governmental auditing standards report on internal control over financial reporting. So this is where we would discuss if we had any findings over the financial statement audit. We do address that we have material weaknesses and significant deficiencies, which we will go over in just a couple more pages. And on page 63, this is our report on compliance for each major program that we audited. So we ended up auditing 2 different programs. One of them was the child nutrition cluster, and one of them was ESSER. So ESSER, we have an unmodified opinion. We believe the district was in compliance with the program. But we do have a qualified opinion on the child nutrition cluster, which means we found material non-compliance within the program. And with that, it was just that there were some expenditures that didn't have supporting documentation. I'm not saying that the expenditures were wrong. There just wasn't documentation to support them. So we had to modify our opinion. And then on page 66, this is the schedule of findings and question costs. It kind of goes over a summary of the whole audit, our findings, and each finding has a lot more context behind it if you read into it. So it goes over our audit report on the financial statements, which was unmodified. We believe they're materially stated. We do have significant deficiencies and material weaknesses. and there was non-compliance in the financial statements. Then we go over our opinion over each program that we audited and the findings within those programs. So our first finding, 2024-001, is a material weakness that the auditors draft the financial statements. We assist in drafting the financial statements. We do that with almost every single one of our audits. We don't recommend any changes. It's just an internal control weakness that the board should be aware of. Number 2 on page 67 is a material weakness that during our average daily membership testing 10-day drop rule, there were 6 students that had not been enrolled after being absent for more than 10 days. In addition, 2 grade levels did not tie within 2 ADM. The district overreported to the state. And then in total, not just by grade level, the district overreported by 23 ADM. Number 3, a material weakness. During our compliance testing in the child nutrition cluster, there were 9 out of 37 transactions tested, which did not include purchase orders, indicating management approval. One of the 9 also did not include invoices substantiating the expenditures in the amount of $4,500. The expenditure was made with a credit card, and we were unable to identify the costs in the credit card statement that were adding up to the compliance expenditure. 2024-004 is a material weakness. During payroll testing, there were 2 employees which did not have time allocated on their time cards to the nutrition program, but they were charged to the nutrition program. 8 out of 13 time cards had no documentation of management or supervisor approval. Total payroll from our sample charged inappropriately to the program was $1,700. (2024-05) on page 69. The district did not have an accurate reconciliation of capital assets. There were multiple capital asset additions, which were identified by auditors. In 2024-06, during our testing of student body funds, it was noted there was no segregation of duties. So the elementary school bank statements had not been reconciled in 6 months. And the June 30, 2024 reconciliation did not tie to the balance sheet by $6,800 because of previous errors. There was also 1 expenditure in the elementary school that had no invoice or supporting documentation showing management approval. A lot of these are because of documentation and management approval documentation. So even if it was done, it needs to be signed off by management documenting that it was done, because we can't just take the word of someone. We have to actually see that it was done. And then 2024-07, we have a significant deficiency. During our payroll testing, it was noted that 3rd and 4th quarter of 2023 941s were not filed on time, and no review of payroll was completed during this time. The district has since corrected this internal control weakness. And you'll also see in a lot of these findings as well that in the context, most of them have already been corrected. 2024-08 on page 71, during our testing of cash, it was noted that handwritten checks were being issued by staff other than the deputy clerk or authorized contracted ESD employees. Blank checks were being kept at the district and signed by an authorized person, but it is unclear who issued or approved the checks prior to them being issued. 2024-09 material weakness. During our testing of cash, it was noted that the bank statements are being received and reconciled by 1 person with no review by another party. And those are all the financial statement findings. On page 72, this is where our compliance findings are, and they're actually just the same finding as two of our financial statement findings already. Just we have to note that it was non-compliance with a federal award. So the first one was the transactions that didn't include purchase orders with management approval on them for the child nutrition cluster, and the payroll, which was incorrectly charged to the program. And then on page 74, this is the summary schedule of prior audit findings. So most of those findings that we had this year were actually repeat findings from last year that we re-audited to see if they had been corrected. And it's really hard to have change in management and catch all of these things. Internal controls kind of just slip through the cracks at some point, which is why we re-audit all of these things. But like I said, in our context and all the findings that we went through, most of them have already been corrected, and we've already talked about them with management, and we will look at them again next year and verify that there were corrections made. And that is it for the financial report. I really appreciate all of Amanda's help for getting everything ready for me and walking through stuff with me, and everyone on the accounting team and management at the district. So we really appreciate you for all of your work that you do. Does anyone have any questions?
Lindsay.
No questions.
All
Some
righty.
good light reading. You can use it on your nightstand if when you want to fall asleep, just start reading.
I actually like these, but okay, thank you
Oh,
all. I am
thank you,
going to
Lindsay.
check out. Bye.
Thank you.
All right, so I will touch on current financials. Hopefully you have that report in front of you. In December, the general fund collected about almost $31,000 in property taxes and a little over $6,000 in interest. The basic school support payment came in close to $394,000, which is great. And then the special revenue funds collected almost $27,000. So not a whole lot of other cash coming in this month, in this last month, but just kind of our steadies. Also with checks, not a whole lot of checks went out that were outside of our normal utilities and payroll checks. It was a short month, but we did get some things out for iReady, which you guys have been talking about over the last couple of months, getting prizes for those kids. The band went for Allstate, their fees, and then we also paid for a couple of grant expenditures. So we do have Davis Security, which you guys had talked about with your intercom and bell system. And then we paid for the speakers. That went to the Intermountain. I believe we were able to get them a little bit cheaper than Davis was. And then we paid for the SRO and WRK, which was just a reimbursement payment. We have the seismic TAP grant. So they billed us for the $25,000 of that grant, and we received it back. And then in January, which I'll report on in February, we will have paid our last state school fund repayment back to them, which is fabulous. And we have also over November and December worked pretty hard to get PERS reconciled. So that has also hit, which you can kind of see in the financial statements a little bit. It's kind of not totally pointed out, but as we'll kind of move through it and then I'll point it out for you. So on that second page, you can see all of the revenue that's coming in with the current projected expenditures and the revenue that we have coming in. It looks like we're going to kind of come in right where we ended last year. So about $100,000 more, but better than zero. So we like to see it going up a little bit, not going down, but we're still going to work pretty hard to make sure we can keep our expenditures pretty tight. On that third page, this is the expenditures list, and it is sorted in 3 different ways. In that top section is a little more detail on function level between high school, elementary, services, board, transportation. You can kind of see the different categories there. We do have the fiscal services of 2520, and that looks a little over budget in that one line item. We will dig into that a little bit, and that is also the state school fund repayment. So we'll get that corrected here as the year goes on. The next section there is expenditures on the major function level, which is what ODE looks at and what we kind of reconcile to. And then that third section, you can see it broken out into salary, benefits, services, and supplies and materials. So a couple of different ways to look at it. The fourth page is a cash flow page. This is where you will see PERS come in that bottom section. You'll see benefits, and then under December, you see that it went to 403,000 over the prior month's 150. So we got that extra 250 roughly posted in there, and we're glad to see that finally true up. The next couple pages are just the check reconciliation or the check registers for you guys to look at. And if you have any questions.
Thank you, ma'am.
You bet.
So you got my report. I'll just highlight a few things because you guys can read. I already participation is increasing. We changed to our new bell schedule today. So that way we can address not only intervention, but also enrichment for those kiddos that are already at grade level and above. Also for our juniors, so that way we can address SAT, ACT prep, and also concurrent enrollment time for them. We will be starting our schedule will address time for them to take their iReady mid-year diagnostic as well. So we're looking forward to those results and seeing their growth. And then we're going to have an academic assembly, so that way we can start drawing tickets and giving out some incentive prizes for them.
Bell schedule before you move on.
Yes.
Did it cut off like at the end of class, right?
It took about at most 5 minutes off of each class is what it did. And then it combined that so that way we could use that for intervention time.
Okay, and is lunch the same?
Lunch is the same. Lunch has not changed. It's changed what time. It had to adjust what time, but it did not shorten. Yep. We hosted our first Title I event where we had our annual meeting, which is required. And then we also then turned that into a family engagement night and gave out some door prizes, and EOU came out. They were fantastic. We had a STEM session for kiddos. We had early college initiatives room for the high school kids. And then we had some activities in the gym, and EOU did a great job of providing those activities, and they handed out some swag, and we gave out some door prizes, and the lunch ladies did a great job of providing dinner, which according to the federal government standards, it was a light snack because we don't want to violate those standards. But it was great. And I was really thankful for all the staff that participated and were able to come out and help. And it was a good time. Also applied last week for 2 TAP grants for long range facility planning and for a facilities assessment grant. Each of those were $40,000 a piece. We should find out in about a month for each of those, and we'll proceed from there. So excited about that. Any questions?
For first reading school district policies, we have those attachments. I need to schedule a discussion to go over
Little
this in
half pound of paper there.
Yes. Yeah, I'll get that books and so we can look at those thoroughly.
Pull out my calendar here. The next board meeting is on, I believe, February 17th. So we need to obviously do it before then. So how does February 3rd look?
Keep it to Monday. That's cool.
It's the only day on my calendar that has nothing on it.
What day?
Oh, we do. That's right. Sorry, Miss Wharton. My apologies. As she like smacks me upside the head. I will be gone. What is the what basketball do you have on the 4th?
We can go ahead and go on the board. Make it work.
What time works for you?
If we-
I'm good with 5, if that works for everyone else. Can I make it work? Okay, so February 4th at 5. Okay. Yes. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. Hopefully, we'll see. Stop recording. Stop.